Hey, Rich Belgy with ministryav.com, and I got a couple of requests to go over a little more of a tutorial on Light Converse. And today we're going to start a room, excuse me, from scratch, and it could be something that eventually, looks like this. This is a project I'm working on, and I use Light Converse to design the whole space. And this room will be built and finished in the next few weeks, and it really will have all this kind of stuff. So Light Converse has been great for testing ideas to scale. This room is all to scale, and try different lighting options, different projection options, and just generally work out ideas, see what you like and don't like before you get into the space. I find that it saves a lot of time and trial and error. You'll still have some when you get into a room, but you can eliminate a lot of it, but with a pre-visualization program like Light Converse. And what I'm going to do real quick while I'm in this room and it's built is kind of go over a little bit of the interface stuff. So this is full screen mode. If you right click on this circle, you get this menu. Excuse me. And now you can switch between desktop mode, which gives you all the extra controls, and full screen mode. Another very important feature in here is the ambient lighting, and then smoke. So if you want to simulate running a hazer in a room, a lot of times I have it pretty dark. And then you can turn the haze on and off. It does some accurate things, like it kind of washes out the projection a little bit. The projection gets a little bit more vivid. It has this wind thing too, which is cool. Sometimes it gets a little crazy. You also have field of view. So you can make it real wide angle. You can make it real flat. Usually keep it somewhere in the middle. If you really get lost with the controls, you can select the preset, ceiling, floor, back, front. If you wheel the mouse knob over this circle, you will tilt. If you wheel the mouse knob over anywhere else, you will go up and down in elevation. I'm going to turn the ambient back down, turn the smoke down a little. So, and then click and hold with your left mouse button. Left, right goes left, right. Forward, back zooms in and out. So, between the knob, forward, back, left, right, that's how you move around. Now I'm going to go to desktop. Now when you go to setup, you have two options. So you have DMX, which is all of your lights and projectors. Room, which is all of your objects, speakers, your stage. In the back here, I have some objects acting as wood pallets that will be installed in the room. TVs, are kind of one of those things where they're under the room, but you can assign a video texture to them. So they kind of overlap with your lighting stuff. And this room is pretty detailed, but it didn't take me an extremely long time to build. And I'll show you some of the basics, and you guys can go as in-depth as you want in your own designs. So I'm going to create a new one. Tutorial room. Spell that right. And I'll click OK. And now sometimes you get stuck. Where it puts the camera is the origin of the room, which is dead center, which is in the floor. So, like I said, with the wheel, scroll up. And now you can look around. Front, back. Now that's the only thing in here that's a little goofy to me, is the front, back, left, and right. If you look at this, to me, this is looking forward. But it says floor, back, left, right. So I'm not sure what the intent is, but it seems kind of backwards to me. But if you spin it around, now this seems backwards to me. I don't know. I've drawn everything this way, and this is how it defaults to the view. So that's just how I start drawing. So if you click on room, you'll see you got a lot going on here. You have all your layers, and by default, the floor, ceiling, front, back, left, and right are all back down here. You also have world center, which lets you assign things. So right now the floor, this is the world center. You can change it to other things. I usually keep it to that. And then you have, this is a pretty important place to start right here. You have room size, but it's in metric. So this is 10 meters by 10 meters by 4 meters. I'm in good old America. So I changed this to imperial. And then I'll put in my room size, and I'll usually do this as the very first thing I do. Now the other example I showed you, that room is about 56 wide, about 75 deep, and about 15.5 feet tall. So this is more or less how I started that room. And some other basic things you can do once you want to start from scratch. Clicking on a surface will select it. If I click on floor, I can go to material right here, and I will clear out this texture, and you do that by simply deselecting something. So now it's gray, and in that room, carpet is like a dark gray, so I'll do that. And then let's start real simple. Just as a point of reference, let's put in a stage. So I'll select layer 1, go to browse 3D model, and by default you get this folder, which has a lot of primitives which you can use to make just about anything you want. You also have folders. There's animated things, bar related items. You'll find that some things are a little strange. You know, I mean, I guess if you're building a set, but there's not a lot of times when I've wanted any of this stuff. But these are good. What else you got? Bar, desk. These are good for desks or kiosk kind of things. Bathroom. Again, I haven't needed that. Building, some door stuff and some stairs. I could see use for that if you're doing something with a set. Car. Haven't really needed a dump truck on my stage yet. More chairs. You know, lots of stuff. What I have used is somewhere in here is there's music, which is drum sets and stuff. Haven't needed a tank, but it's there. Here we go. Maybe it's this one. This one's good for truss. I like to use some truss. This has actual part numbers. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll pick a generic one and just size it to what I want. I'll pick like a box truss and make it 12 by 12 or 20 by 20, whatever the size is. What else is there? Some fabric stuff. Furniture. Speakers. I'll usually do as a point of reference because especially with projection and lighting, there's a sound system somewhere that you need to take into account for aiming lights and projectors and stuff. So I usually put some in as a reference. These are good. Some staging pieces. Another brand of truss. Technics is where I get my TVs. I usually use, one of these to represent a lighting console somewhere, even though these are our lighting consoles. I'll use one of these same ones for the audio console as well. This kind of stuff is good. Laptops and TVs and stuff. So if you're putting together a sound booth, it's good to have stuff like this in your drawing to say, oh, I do have plenty of space, this will all fit, or oh, you know what, we should probably have a bigger table or 2 counters or, whatever. I don't go crazy with detail, but it's good to have placeholders in the design so you know what'll fit. What else? We got more chairs and then more truss. So I'm going to go back up to primitives. I'm going to pick the cube. And the default is 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. and so that's why it's 3.28, because I have it in feet. So X, and they color code it, but just so you have, it's a good thing to remember. X is left and right, and here Y is front to back, which in some programs is Z, but in this case Z is altitude, up and down. So if you look, so if I change the size on the X-axis, there's two ways to do that. You can click. It's kind of weird, if you click and hold, it doesn't really do anything, but if you wiggle the mouse around as you go, then it'll go. So you can see I'm making it bigger or smaller on the X-axis. The other thing you can do, like in this room, I know the stage is 40 feet wide. So you can click this and type in 40, and then you're done. And I'm just going to mimic that room. I know the stage is 2 feet tall, and it's 12 feet deep. There you go. Well, I usually start with size. Rotation, this is correct in this case, but rotation works as, if you look at this line, it's going to rotate on that line. So X-axis, it'll spin on this X-axis right there. So it's kind of spinning that way. And you can always just type in 0. Y-axis would be this green axis. So there you go. And then Z would spin it that way. There we go. And then you get to position. So I know my room's 75 feet deep. Well, before I go there, you can just do this. The other thing you can do to move quicker, because that's kind of slow, you can click and then move the mouse wheel. It takes a little bit of coordination, but that's your way to move stuff fast. Another tip with moving around, only in these two modes, the DMX mode or the room mode, you can use the arrow keys. So while you're mousing around here, you can use up and down, left and right on the arrow keys. So if I want to line this up with the back wall, I can turn this way, use my left arrow keys up and down, and I know the stage is all the way against the wall. So I'll go up, and I just lost that point. You can see it just went through the wall. And I'll just round it off to 31.5, and now these are exactly touching. And so now what you start to do is you start to move around, and you're using a combination of the mouse, left, right, up and down keys. You can mouse and tilt a lot, and then zoom out, and now you can work, in a top-down view if you want. And then just mouse wheel up, push back in. But whenever you add a new object, it's going to add here. So let's just say another thing for reference. Let's click on this next layer, browse. We'll go to music and throw in a drum set. Now, this is a good example. Not every object will show up the way you want it. In this case, the origin of the model is in the middle. That's why the drum set's essentially in the floor. So I'll raise it up, and you can see it's kind of floating now. And I'll just go down until it's touching the floor. There you go. And we want to put it up on stage. Let's just put it dead center for fun. We'll raise it up so it's sitting on the stage and not in the stage. And we end up with something like that. And now you can deselect it by clicking an empty layer. And now we got a room with a drum set. So now what I would like to do, since I have a reference, so if I spin around, I know where my stage is. I don't have an empty room. Let's go ahead and change the material of that back wall. We'll erase the texture by clicking on texture and loading an empty thing. And now you can make it any color you want. I don't know, maybe the walls in this room are going to be dark navy blue. Might make for an ugly room, but let's try it. So I'm going to erase this texture I'm going to lower that down. Go over there. I wish, and maybe you can, and I just don't know. Probably your best bet if you do have a specific color would be to just make a little JPEG and load it as your texture. And you can select anything you want by clicking Explore and going anywhere outside of the default folder. But for now, we'll just kind of guess at the colors here. Material, texture. Click on an empty spot. Bring the level down to about 10, and go over here. So do it on this wall. Get rid of the texture. Lower the level down. Bring it over there. And last but not least, we'll do the ceiling. And maybe we'll just get rid of the texture, but leave it a lighter gray. I'll click on an empty layer just to deselect that. So now it's our room. So now let's save and back out. And now when we move around, this is our very, very basic room. As you can see, it didn't take too long. And generally, I just go as detailed as I need to. So if we do have a stage layout, I'll lay out the stage with people and instruments. But I'm not going to put in 500 chairs if that's how many chairs are in the room. Maybe I'll put in the first row if I need a marker for some reason. But, again, you can go as detailed as you want. I just worry about elements in the room that I'm going to have to shine lights around or attach lights to. I try to get the room dimensions very accurate. I try to get the stage dimensions accurate. The stuff that fills the room is a little less important. So let's go back to room. And for fun, let's add some truss. So let's scroll down to some kind of standard box truss. That's weird. I don't know why there's two pieces. But let's do this. If you have that layer selected, you can do one of two things. You can clear it. Oh, I see what I did. I had two layers selected. Okay. So let's go back. Let's pick a different piece of truss. There we go. That's a bigger piece of truss. And let's say that the truss is at 15 feet. Now, it's 15 feet to the middle of the truss. So right now this truss is just under 12 inch for some reason. 0.73 of 1 foot. It's like 9-inch truss. Let's just do this. Let's make it 12-inch box truss. And since this is the origin of it, and that's where it's measuring this 15-foot height to, you just have to keep that in mind. So it's 15 feet from the floor to the middle of the truss, not to the bottom or the top. If you want it to be 15 feet to the top, then you'd have to split that in half, and it would actually be 14.5 feet in this case. So, it's up to you how detailed you want to get, but that stuff like that is kind of important, and that's where I'll look at details. So let's move this up. Let's say this is our stage backlight. So I'm holding down the left key to go side to side. And let's push this up. Actually, if the room is 75 and we're measuring from the middle, that's, I don't know, math off the top of my head. That's going to be over 35 feet to the front. So let's try 37 feet. See where that puts us. Alright. So our truss is pretty close to the wall. And that's going to be our upstage lighting truss. And let's say we have truss all the way across the stage. I mean, this is 16 foot wide. Let me pick like 10 foot. That's probably a more standard size. And then what I'll do is I'll hit duplicate. And it's kind of hard to tell on this one, but it's flashing red. And that kind of hints that you have two objects occupying the same space. So now I'm going to go over and I'll use the mouse wheel to help get it over there faster. And you'll see here right when I get to about 10 feet, because this piece is 10 feet, that, they're just touching. So actually what we can do is negative goes left, so -10. And if I deselect it, you'll see you got a nice continuous row of truss. Now if I select it again, hit duplicate again, now I can go the other direction, 10 feet. So I usually like to place a middle object, and then I'll duplicate and move stuff left and right. Once I figure out where to put this one, I can duplicate it and put it on the other side. And just makes it a lot easier. So now I got 30 feet of truss. Let's get into some fun stuff and go to DMX side. Let's see, this will look pretty similar. Just some controls change. But you still have layers. I mean, you can put in, I think, 1,500 fixtures. Yeah, 1,536. That's a lot. I'm going to select layer 1 here. I'm going to go browse. And I'm going to go to clay, packy, Sharpie. Well, actually, let me here go to this. So just like you have folders in the other thing, and here you have moving head, which is anything with pan and tilt. Got some scanners, which are kind of like laser objects, I guess. Fixed fixtures. This would be like your ETC source 4 pars for like conventional lighting. This would be any LED fixture that doesn't move, like your chroma Q color forces, any Chauvet LED pars, any Comar LED pars, just anything without pan and tilt. Moving head, I mean, this could be an LED fixture too, but it has to pan and tilt. Digital, I guess this is future stuff. Projectors, I'll use these a lot, and we'll add a couple projectors to this scene too. But for now, I'm going to start with some clay packy Sharpies, and you can either sort them by the fixture ID, or you can sort it by name. I think it defaulted to name. So clay packy, Sharpie, standard, 16 channel, and there'll be different stuff. Like say here's one. There's a different fixture. There's 25 channel mode, 28 channel mode, a different 28 channel mode, and a 31 channel mode. For a lot of common things, there's different profiles, which is nice, but not everything has it. So there's some fixtures I've had to edit or modify to make work, but Sharpie's one that's in there already. So hit apply. And a little different. Fixtures pop up in the middle of the whole world. Whereas when you're in the room, stuff popped up in the middle of the floor here. These pop up in the middle of everything. I'm not sure why they both don't work, but it's nice because if you had a piece of furniture here in the middle, it keeps your light from popping up in the middle of that, and then you wouldn't be able to find it. So, altitude, let's see here, let me think. The bottom of that truss is probably 14. And again, this origin, it'd be more convenient if it was at the bottom of the fixture right there, but it's in the middle. So, I think we had that thing 36 feet upstage. Let's see if I remember right. And that's where these blue lines help. Okay, must have been 37. There you go. So now you know you're in the middle of that truss. And let's try going up to 14. Too high. And again, to move faster, I'm clicking and holding and then moving the mouse around. That makes it go faster. And once you get close, you can make little clicks. And actually, if you want to get precise, it would have to be on this downstage edge. If you had clamps, it would have to be down a little bit. So I'm assuming that there's a clamp there, so that's going to drop the fixture down a little bit. And I'm assuming we're clamping onto this front edge. Again, it's up to you how detailed you want to get, but that makes a difference. Alright, so we have one Sharpie dead center, and let's say we want, I don't know, 9 of them. I'm going to duplicate, and I'm going to move to the left until they're not on top of each other anymore. And you can see here that's about minus 1.4. So let's say for each duplicate, we're going to go 1.5 feet. Now I'll duplicate again, go another 1.5 feet, which is minus 3. Go another 1.5 feet, minus 4.5. Oh, I didn't duplicate it. Go back to minus 3. Minus 3. Duplicate. I go to negative 4.5. So we have 4 total. Let's do a couple the other way. Duplicate. Go to positive 1.5. Duplicate it again. Go to 3. And duplicate it again. Go to 4.5. Now what are we up to? Up to 7. So we'll duplicate one more. Go to 6. Duplicate one more. Go to negative 6. So probably could have spaced them out a little more, but let's see what this looks like. I'll show you how to control some lights. So we'll go save. Now we're in our big empty room with purple walls. I'm going to bring down the ambient light level a little bit. Bring down this wind. I'm going to bring up the smoke all the way because who doesn't like haze? Now if you click one fixture, you'll get all the controls that that fixture has. So in this case, dimmer, which I believe is in Russian for some reason, but that's where the programmers are. Shutter, color, gobo, prism, prism rotation, your pan and tilt with locks, which are nice for aiming stuff. Frost, fixture reset, lamp control, DMX function, focus, and effect movement. So everything that the real fixture has, you have access to. So I can bring up one fixture, and just like a real lighting console, if you bring up the dimmer and the shutter's closed, you're not going to see any light. So don't panic, you're not doing anything wrong, you just have to treat it like a real lighting fixture. And there you go, you got a nice Sharpie shooting out a beam. And if you take out the smoke, you can see you just get a light on the source, and you'll see light on the ground. But unless you put in some kind of haze, you won't see much else. Let's really crank it for fun. Now what you can do is double click and you'll select all the same type. So let's bring all these up. And then instead of trying to pan straight out, I like to go home, lock the pan, again like you would a normal fixture. And maybe the haze is a little intense right now. Now moving on, you can pick a color. Amber is nice and punchy. Because this is such a beamy fixture and this tries to simulate, stuff kind of overexposing, you'll see things kind of look white there, but you'll see that color on the ground. Some of these lighter colors. Let's pick the amber for fun. Now, you have gobo. These have these little tiny laser beam kind of gobos. And you can click anywhere, never mind. You click this X to deselect lights. And then double click back on a fixture if I can grab it. There we go. Let's pick a different gobo for fun. You got that guy. And you keep going up. These little starfield kind of things. Now, this program will try to simulate prisms and stuff. So as you can see there. And even a continuous rotation where you can rotate it and stop. So you got prism. Turn the prism off for now. And these are all the gobos that are actually in a Sharpie. So you got stars, little splat kind of thing. What else? Plus sign thing. And then somewhere in here will be gobo wheel rotation. Because these have a fixed gobo wheel. You can't rotate the gobo itself. So that's why it's scrolling through each one. You can stop, or you can go back and just pick open. let's see here. Some effects. Oh, there you go. Frost works. Sometimes, where's a good example? Focus. So if I go, this kind of assumes everything's in focus. So if you pick that, if you had the focus at 0, odds are it's not going to be sharp like that. And as you can see, changing focus doesn't do anything. So it doesn't simulate everything. But as you can see, it does a pretty good job. I mean, if you're programming it and all you had to do was come back later and tweak the focus, and you had all your other cues programmed, it's still saving you a lot of time. But as you can see, it'll simulate frosting, that gobo, essentially blurring it, which that's pretty cool. I didn't know it did that. So, some of these other functions, this effect movement again is one where you can't really simulate it, but it's there because it's a DMX channel. So I'm going to go back to open. There's another cool thing that's in here too. If you want to play around with some movement macros. If you go to fixture menu with them selected, you can pick circle. As you can see, it defaults to a pretty crazy setup. So if you slow the speed down and then bring in the X and Y so that it's a much smaller circle. And as you can see here, I'm sure it's kind of small, but you're basically doing a circle. And it's still kind of big. Let's narrow it down some more. It's really small. There you go. Yeah, just like in real life, you wouldn't want 10 fixtures to move by themselves, so you have an offset. Which offset can be by their number, but even better would be their 3D position. So now, just like a real console, you're making more of a more desirable pattern. Maybe it looks a little cool, even if you don't offset it all the way. More of a wave. And then there's a random one too, which is kind of cool, where you can reset it. And, you can play with the speed, you can make it crazy. These are fast, but I don't think they're that fast. So as you're programming cues, just kind of keep in mind that this will kind of approximate how fast a fixture is, but you just got to know your fixtures and know, okay, I know they can't really move that fast. Sharpies are pretty fast, but a Mac 2K wash, for example, wouldn't be able to do something like that. It would just get confused. And then you can clear this somewhere, maybe reset, maybe not. Just bring all these back to 0. Now, say if you really mess everything up, you don't want to zero it out again, you can hit reset. And it resets your whole scene, it resets your camera. If I right click on here and bring up this menu, it's reset my smoke and my wind, the ambient lighting. So that's a good place to go back to square one if you ever need to. And then you can just open up a shutter, bring up some lights, and now you got beams again. So that's a lot of stuff, but as you can see, with a little bit of basics, we have a room, we have some truss to simulate our hanging point, we have a stage, we got the beginnings of a band, we have the whole room to scale, we have 10 fixtures, or 9 fixtures, sorry. And if we want to go back in, simply go to DMX. Maybe we want to take these outside 3. Maybe we want 3 banks of 3. So we can push these all the way to the edge. Select these. And I'm holding down Control to pick multiple ones. And then I'm holding down, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Put these back to 36.6. There's no undo in the DMX mode, which will get you in trouble, like it did to me right there. When you're in the room mode drawing stuff, there is undo, which is cool. So let's see. Say those are there. Save. Now we got 3 banks of 3. And this is the whole process of seeing what you like. You know, maybe this is a better look now, and you didn't have to move a bunch of fixtures around to figure it out. You know, maybe you want them all evenly spaced. You could go in and figure out the math. Okay, maybe you start at 0 and you go, 3 feet, 3 feet, 3 feet all the way across. And again, you've done that trial and error. Say you like it. Now when you get to the venue, you don't have to put it up and be like, oh man, I really wish we would have put this in groups of 3 across. And, you've done that in the virtual world. And when you get in, you just set up and go. That's the great part about these kind of programs. But, as you can see, there's some little quirks with the program. But overall, I mean, in a pretty short amount of time, we have a room set up to scale with fixtures. And it's just a matter of adding in the rest of the stuff that you need for a show. And actually, just because I mentioned it, let's do some projectors real quick. So let's turn these off. We'll go into DMX. We'll pick this empty layer here. Go to Browse. Projector. And just because I think it's one that's goofy, let's pick this 12K. And I know this projector because we have some. This is the top with handles. Comes in a little funky. So let's start rotating it to orient it the right way. Once I know I'm spinning the right way, I'll just go ahead and type it in -90. And then now, it should be right. So now, since this is red, that's the x-axis. Nope. This thing does some weird stuff when you start rotating things. So let's say this projector will be aiming at the stage, but we want it. So let's assume there's some truss already up there. I guess it can't be that high. Let's say it's 13 feet up. Alright, and we can move it up stage. And let's do this. Let's just delete the drums for now. Clear. And let's say instead of that, we're going to put in a projection screen. So usually I'll use this panel. And it should have popped itself right in the middle. Yep, there it is. And let's say, for the sake of keeping it simple, let's say it's widescreen. Let's say it's 16 feet wide and 9 feet tall. And let's get it 3 feet off the ground. And let's put it by the back wall, which under our truss, 37 feet. There we go. Pretty quick. And let's say the screen is white. Now we can go back to DMX and we have a surface to project onto. And you'll see this crosshair coming out. Let's center that up. Let's move it further that way. Now there's a couple different things to do with projectors to set them up. First one kind of is aspect ratio. It defaults to 1:1. I don't know of any 1:1 projectors. A standard def would be 4:3. An HD one would be 16:9. And there's a lot of computer resolution ones that are 16:10. Let's assume 16:9. Now we can center this up. So just like in real life, you have some keystoning issues. In real life, that wouldn't be a lot of keystone to correct. The other thing is in real life too, lenses are designed in a way that the light comes out of the projector either to be ceiling mounted or floor mounted. This doesn't really account for that. So in real life, if you did have a ceiling mounted projector mounted the right way, you wouldn't have that much keystone to begin with anyway. You'd have to be at a more extreme angle than that. You can kind of fix it if it bugs you and you don't care about putting the projector in a real location. You could lower the altitude and shoot more straight on. I usually don't worry about it. So say if you know where the projector is going to project from. So say it is right there and you know you'll have some truss. you can play with the zoom at that point. There's some zoom here. So if you know your projector is going to be in the very back of the room and you know what your lens is like, you know, you could move it, you know, way back and, you know, adjust for it. And, you know, just kind of like you would a real projector. And then now what you can do is you can go to, if you want to show an actual video. Now I have the media license if I remember right. So it lets me do video. There's a couple cool things here. So if I go to filter, texture, and the default folder, if you have a, maybe it's not here. Maybe it's under movie. There you go. If you have a hypnotizer, you can actually put your computer on the network with your hippos and actually take your outputs and actually visualize it. So say if you had server 1, it would take output 1 of the first server and actually show what you're outputting in real time, which is pretty cool. So you could, instead of putting a static movie file here, it could be actually what you're sending or going to send to the screens, which is pretty cool. But let's go and pick a different texture. I got this little guy in here. So that's an actual HD clip. QuickTime. It only supports QuickTime. And let's exit just for fun. So now if I select it, I get the output level. And there you go. If I turn up haze, you'll actually see, if I turn it down, you'll actually see haze off the projector, which is cool. Now one thing you notice, you're like, man, I thought he selected a 12K. That's pretty dim. And it's not really that big a screen, and the lights are down real low. Doesn't look that bright. Even if I take the haze out, it doesn't get too punchy. What I noticed is some of the projectors are a little funky, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I select that 12K and I go to browse, you'll see this little button here called constructor, and that lets you edit the profile. So if I click on constructor, I'll see I have DMX channel 1 dimmer, which is just in the software, let you turn it on and off. And if you look over here, you see lumens 3000, but he's got the Christie Roadster S12K selected. It should be 12,000 lumens. I don't know why it's like that and it has been fixed, but you simply come over here. You can't type it in, but you can click to get it close. Now it's 12,000 lumens. Hit exit, hit save. Now it updates, and oh yeah, okay. That looks like a 12,000 lumen projector now. You know, even if you turn the ambient lights back up a little bit, it's still there. And now if you bring up your Sharpies, you know, you can still see the screen. So, if I've only noticed that with projectors, but if you go ahead and think something's funky, you're not going to do anything permanent that you can't undo by just going to browse, constructor, and double checking that. If it was right already, then you simply exit, save or discard, whatever. As long as you didn't change anything, it doesn't really matter. So there you go. Probably a lot of extra info in there, but I have run into that several times. And there's a couple steps to setting up a projector between setting the aspect ratio. You got to give it some kind of surface to project onto if you're going to have a screen. Say if we were in this room and this wall wasn't purple. Well, let's just even see. Let's delete the screen and assume that we're just projecting onto the wall. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, that's what I thought. So it's real dark purple. It more or less disappears. Well, let's assume maybe this is some kind of funky building and that's an accent wall. Let's go back in and we'll make the color white. And let's make it look not even white, but like kind of like a light gray. Now when we go back, now you can see, you know, what it would look like if you just shot a projector right onto the wall. And again, it's a good test. Maybe these Sharpies in the middle are going to wash out this image with haze, and maybe you don't want to do that. So maybe go into DMX. Let's delete that middle one. Yes. And let's move these out with the other guys. So instead of renting 9, we're going to rent 8. And we're going to put them 4 and 4 outside so our beams don't wash out the screen. What does that look like? There you go. I think that looks better, and you could always, you know, when the time is right, you could always pan some across anyway. There we go. So you could always cross them in the middle whenever you want. So that's just one reason why this program, it comes in super handy. And hope I've given you some ideas, show you some basic things. If you guys have any other questions, let me know. I'll try my best to answer them and maybe make a follow-up video. I will be making one more shortly to show how to control a scene. Maybe I'll just pick up with this exact scene with ArtNet over DMX. So you've seen me manually control fixtures, with the built-in controls. In the next video, I'll show you how to control them with DMX from an actual lighting console. Until then, thanks, and let's see you next time.